Good morning. Welcome into Let's Bet It here on Pickswise and Pickswise.com. I'm Mark Zinno, joined by Jared Smith as we welcome you in here to a Wednesday edition. Lots of baseball to get to, of course. College football coming right around the corner in week one of the NFL up on deck. Before we get to all that, though, we must say a quick little celebration and a happy anniversary to us. Let's Bet It 1 year ago today, this show debuted right here on Pickswise and Pickswise.com. And we appreciate all the love and support you guys have given us throughout that time, whether it is on Pickswise.com or you've downloaded the Pickswise app on the Apple Store or Google Play, which is what you still need to do if you haven't done that yet. But I'll defer here to the godfather of Let's Bet It, Jared Smith. It's so happy anniversary to you, sir. And I'm glad I've been able to be along for the ride.
The godfather of Let's Bet It. That is rich. Well, I feel bad for me because this time last year I was doing the show with Lauren, much big, huge step down, right? No, I'm just kidding. But it's been great for my career. I know it's been great for yours. Lauren's loved it. We're back, obviously, year two. I don't know about you, but it's really easy to wake up early every morning and do this grind because let's be honest, gambling every day on sports will take a toll on your mental health. It will take a toll on your outside, social life, especially during football season. But the audience, the community, Pickswise Nation, co-hosts, producers, behind the scenes, everyone that works at Pickswise and at Spotlight Sports Group has made it a fun year. And again, we're about to go right into it's like the X-Wings are going into the gauntlet, getting ready to blow up the Death Star for NFL season. And we're back in the saddle. So here we go. Year two underway today. Let's crush it.
Absolutely. And make sure you guys subscribe to the Pickswise YouTube channel. Leave your comments below. We'll do our best to get to whatever questions you have throughout the show. And we'll lead off today, pun intended, here with some baseball talk in our Bettor Up segment. Look, I know we've all turned the page to football here, but there still is some baseball to get to. And we do have some plays up, I think, on the site here for Mark Lammy. He's got a Red Sox Rays YRFI and an Astros Rangers YRFI, Jared. But a light card for me today. Obviously, it'll be our play of the day because that's the only games that are going on right now. But still, what do you have your eyes on in Major League Baseball tonight?
Yeah, I'm with you. And I think, it kind of, if you've been watching this show every day and we got the diehards in the YouTube that certainly, appreciate what we do every day. And thank you for wishing us a happy anniversary. Appreciate that. But if you do watch us every day and you've probably noticed the plateau of baseball content and now we kind of descend as we, increase our football content. That being said, there's still a lot of great opportunities available in the baseball markets. They're markets that we've swam in every day, and it's the YRFI NRFI market. I would be willing to bet after the insane summer of NRFI, we get some regression in this category down the stretch. Maybe it's because all of a sudden we go from really good starting pitchers every day to call-ups, rookies for a lot of these teams. And we just get into the intensity of October baseball, which is approaching very quickly. So don't treat this next few weeks as NRFIville. I would actually kind of lean on the other side. And Mark Lammy's picks, you mentioned them, both YRFIs today, Red Sox, Rays, Astros, Rangers. I'm going back to the well because I like pain. I'm a masochist, and I'm taking this Brewers, Rockies, NRFI at plus 160. It has nothing to do with the matchup and everything to do with the price. Anytime this bet is plus 140 or higher, I take it very seriously. If it's plus 150 or higher, it's almost an auto play just because of the price and because of how often it's hit, which is 29 out of 70 times at Coors Field this year, which is about 41.5%. Plus 160, which is the price I got this over at Circa, implies 38.5%. You see that little gap, which we call value, whatever you want to call it, edge. Now we look at the matchup itself and we see if we can increase that edge. Eric Lauer, 20-5 to the NRFI this year. That's really good. 11-4 on the road. Obviously not a ton of exposure at Coors Field. Kyle Freeland has not been great. 17-9 NRFI. That's below average. 7-6 at Coors this year. That's very below average. But he's facing a Milwaukee lineup that doesn't hit lefties well. Second lowest average against lefties since August 1st. Both of these teams, Lauer is a lefty as well, bottom half of the league in WRC plus against lefties since August 1st. So two lefties, not a lot of exposure against the other lineup, and you have a very favorable price at plus 160. Not a play of the day, because every time I put this stupid bet as a play of the day, it always loses, like Christian Yelich hitting a 500-foot home run in the top of the first yesterday. But I will go back to the well. Plus 160, the NRFI course today between the Brewers and the Rockies. Day game 2, I kind of like that. Little matinee vibes in Mile High City.
I will go back to the well for the day on one particular aspect. We'll get to that coming up later in the show. Here's the only thing I have for today from a baseball standpoint. If you'd like to make yourself nauseous and you'd like to do something foolish, I don't recommend a high play on it. But 3 of the biggest favorites of the day. The St. Louis Cardinals, who are taking on the Nationals starting Jordan Montgomery. The Braves, who are starting Spencer Strider against the Oakland A's. And the Mets, who are starting Chris Bassett against the Pirates, who the Mets lost that 10.5-game lead. They're now tied for first place with the Atlanta Braves. Those 3 favorites parlayed together, get you a cool plus 155. The heck? I mean, look, do you really think the Mets are going to lose 2 in a row to the Pirates, right? Like, and this is actually
a doubleheader today.
I know.
This is actually a parlay where we doubleheader the Mets parlay to sweep the doubleheader.
No, it's not a bad idea either. But, again, you're at that point, as you mentioned, where you're getting a lot of young guys getting starts who aren't, necessarily Major League Baseball players or AAA guys getting called up as the rosters expand. And these good teams have to get wins. And the Mets, have to be feeling the pressure right now that they're tied for first. So I don't see them losing this first game today. They'll be able to let the sort of wind out of their sails a little bit and breathe. And they get DeGrom going in game 2. So, again, it's a fun, foolish bet, pizza bet, put a very, very small amount down on it because parlays are incredibly tough to hit, but especially with those numbers. And we've talked so much this year about how those heavier than 200 favorites have fared. And the Cardinals minus 300 today with Jordan Montgomery has been fantastic. It's been fantastic since coming over from the Yankees against the Nationals. So there is some risk involved there, but for a goof, maybe a little pizza bet, $10 here and see where we go with that. So that'll do it for baseball. We'll get back to it, obviously, with our plays of the day. And let's get to college football right now, as we have some key games coming up in week 2. All of my 5 plays will be up on the site later today, including my best bet this week. We'll get to that in a moment. But some of the games that I've highlighted this week are on some of the biggest games of the week. Let's start with Bama and Texas here, Jared, as a game where this number continues to rise. And I will tell you, if you have designs on betting Alabama, you better move fast. This thing opened up at 15.5. It was quickly bet up to 18.5. We are now sitting at 20 to 20.5. Once this thing hit 21, for me, Jared, once this number hits 21, it's a pass. I'm just not going to bet it over 3 touchdowns. It's not a smart move from a numbers standpoint. But Alabama should have no problem here beating the crap out of Texas. Remember, Texas scored 52 points, but they were aided by a special teams touchdown and a defensive touchdown in that game. They didn't run the ball that well. Quinn Ewers wasn't under a lot of pressure and didn't necessarily play all that fantastic. I wonder how he's going to survive against an Alabama defense that last year was top 5 in the nation in sacks per game. And, I don't know, maybe the best defensive player, and if not the best player in the country, in Will Anderson. It's going to be a long day for the Longhorns in Austin. I think this ends ugly. I don't know if this game goes over the total, it's because it's garbage points at the end of the game scored by Texas when Nick Saban is playing his third stringers, getting him some reps against some real live talent that's not Utah State and a group of 5 schools. So I like Alabama a lot this week to cover this number. But again, once it gets to 21, it's a pass for me.
Yeah, this number's moved a lot. So one of the most fascinating things that I like to examine now that we're in the mid-season stage, I will call it that, even though we're very early on, it's still, we have games and data points to now go off of. So not every sports book does this. South Point does. Games of the year in college football. So we had an Alabama-Texas line weeks ago. It was Alabama minus 12. Well, it ain't minus 12 anymore. So to me, when you look at that and I see a minus 12 2 weeks ago for one game, and we've only played one game, and the line has now moved over a touchdown in Alabama's favor, makes it very hard to find any quote-unquote value with Alabama. Does that mean they can't win this game by 30? No, they could easily win this game by 30. But we bet numbers, not teams. This line has probably moved too much for us to reasonably say there is value with Alabama. Again, that doesn't mean Bama can't go over there and lay a whooping on them. But I ain't getting into the window with a game that has moved 8 points in 1 week. I can't do it. So Bama probably wins by 3 touchdowns, but it's a pass for me.
And if you don't want to do that, wait till Bama's team total comes out. And if it's below, I would say about 37 and a half in that range, I'd take the over.
Agreed.
Because Texas defense isn't good yet. They may get there, but and remember one other thing. You're going to add Steve Sarkisian to the list of former Saban assistants who have lost to Nick Saban by the end of this week. It's just a question of by how much. I really don't think there's any way Texas can actually win this game, despite the fact that they're playing on their home field. All right, let's maybe go to the most overrated team right now in college football in the Florida Gators. And I don't say that necessarily as a pejorative, but the idea that they went from unranked to 12th seems a little bit excessive. I get they beat Utah, which is a very good team, a very competent team, a well-coached team. I get that. But there was a reason that they were unranked to begin with. To move them all the way up there, to me, seems, as Teddy KGB would say, very aggressive. So I'm not ready to put Florida in the top 12 yet. And full disclosure, and this play will be up on the website later on today, I am going to take Kentucky +5. And I think the line is even moving to 5.5 now. So maybe even wait to see if the public continues to back Florida, being the fact that they are Florida. That said, as you see on the screen, they're 5.5. So it is moving. That said, my biggest concern for Kentucky is no Chris Rodriguez. They only rushed for 50 yards last week in a game against Miami of Ohio. That's problematic for them. Kentucky's defense is better than Utah's, and it will play better. But how much will they be on the field without the ability to run the ball with any level of efficiency? Because that's what Mark Stoops has done and built. He wants to grind the tempo down as much as he can. And I question whether that's going to be able to happen without Chris Rodriguez running the football. Status is still unclear. He may, at the last minute, get a bump, but we'll see if that happens. But right now, I'm going to fade Florida for one more week, just on the chance that what we saw in week one was more aberration than anything else.
I think I'm with you here. I think the market, I expected it to explode towards Florida. It hasn't. I fully expected this number to be at 7. Honestly, when I didn't do an early birds column this week. Right. Like I expected us to get to 7 after what we saw on Saturday. And listen, Kentucky wasn't that great. Like, they didn't look that great. They only ran it, I think, for 1.1 yards per carry against Miami. Yeah, 1.9 yards per carry against Miami of Ohio, a team that averaged 4.4 yards per carry allowed on defense last year. The Florida offense is intriguing to me. 70% success rate with running plays against the Utah defense that is very good against the run. 7.7 yards per play. So can they continue that against the Kentucky front? That, again, you're right. I think Kentucky's defense is probably better. Maybe personnel-wise is better. Maybe the scheme is a little better with Utah. But it's hard to argue that Kentucky has the big, beefy SEC boys up front. Utah's dealing with a bit of a watered-down recruiting pool compared to Kentucky. So I think that there is a case to be made that Florida will not have the same success. There are two other things working in Kentucky's favor here. We didn't know what Billy Napier's offense was going to look like week one. Now there's a whole game film on tape for the Kentucky staff to digest. The shroud of mystery has been revealed on Billy Napier. And it was really good. Anthony Richardson was really good. He could wreck this game. I don't know if I fully trust Will Levis. As a Penn State alum, I'm a little bitter about, his success in Kentucky because I think he could and should have been having it with Penn State. Probably. That's okay. I'll admit it. I'm not going to be the one that denies the fact that I'm a little biased. Right. Tavion Robinson's the guy that Florida needs to be very concerned with. He was fantastic against Miami of Ohio, and he seems like he's one of those guys that is going to be a problem for a lot of defenses this year. The biggest concern I have is Will Levis and how he handles the swamp, and the fact that this line has moved a little bit towards Kentucky, I think, and hasn't blasted towards that key number of 7, despite Florida being boosted in the rankings a little bit higher than we think, tells you that the sharp money is still pretty hot and heavy on Kentucky. And that's probably the side I would lean here.
I'll add one more thing about Kentucky's defense that I think helps them. They've played against mobile quarterbacks like this before. They face Hendon Hooker routinely. They've faced Stetson Bennett, who now we know, can run and has the legs. And the other side of the ledger over the course of the last 2 years, this defense has seen the likes of a Bryce Young or, a Bo Nix when he was at Auburn. Or they just, Matt Corral at Ole Miss, they have the experience against these mobile quarterbacks and know how to handle them pretty well. So, yes, I agree with you 100%. Anthony Richardson could wreck the entire game and make Florida run away with this thing, and his Heisman odds will increase even more than they already have after 1 week. But still, I'm cautious on Florida.
I think that's moved too much, by the way. We'll do it back to the futures next week when we get into the NFL mode. But I would be willing to bet that we've maybe seen a peak with Mr. Richardson's Heisman. I can't see it getting much lower, barring just another absurd performance this week. They've moved a lot. It has moved a lot.
We shall see. All right, the third and final game between ranked opponents this week, Baylor and BYU. For me, this is a pass. I don't want anything to do with BYU again until I figure out when they're going to fall apart, and I don't know the answer to that like they did last year after a 7-0, 8-0 start, whatever it was. But, Baylor is impressive from an offensive standpoint. How impressive can they be on defense? I think that still remains to be seen.
So this is a spot where I would be willing to buy low on Baylor. So, or really, I guess more sell high on BYU. This line was -8, BYU -8 in the look ahead. It's now 3.5. So I guess I got it wrong. It would be buying low on BYU, even though they looked fantastic the other night. I mean, that was an absolute butt whooping against USF. That was a butt whooping. Baylor looked okay too. Listen, I don't really have much on this game. I think this is going to be one of those non-conference games that we look back on and don't really glean too much from. Two teams that never play each other, so not really much for me here. But I can tell you that this line was -8 2 weeks ago over at the South Point, and now it's moved 4 points after one game. So take that for what it is.
All right, Jared, rest of the slate of games that you're on, which ones do you want to get into here? And I will run down my entire list of 5 that'll be up on this site later today.
Yeah, and again, I'll be around Thursday, Friday to officially give out these picks. I think the games that I'm interested in, my strategy, and again, this is year 2, so this shouldn't be a surprise for the diehards out there. I like to buy low and sell high. I'm probably going to be selling high on UNC after arguably the most insane game. I mean, I hope that's not the most absurd game we've watched all year, because I want the bar to keep getting raised. But they set a pretty high bar, 63-61 over App State. Now they have to go to Georgia State and face a team that ran for 200 yards against South Carolina, an SEC front. And, say what you want about South Carolina's talent, but this is still a very, very good Georgia State offense that was done in by 2 blocked punts against the Gamecocks. If it not for that, they probably cover. Maybe they even win that game outright. They lost by 3 touchdowns, and they had 2 blocked punts returned for a touchdown. So that is very fluky and likely will not happen again this week. The Tar Heels offense is elite. I would consider an over in this game, but it's very high in the mid to high 60s. But Drake May's been fantastic. 9 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, 8.2 yards per carry with running plays, 119 points in 2 games for the Tar Heels. I know one of them was against Florida A&M, but that offense is legit. There should be points in this game. Georgia State will move it on the ground. UNC will obviously move it. I think catching 8 is a favorable number after we get to that key number of 7. I would take 7.5 too, but I do like Georgia State. Colorado Air Force. So I don't understand how this total was so low. I got it at 45, which, by the way, is the 5th most landed on total in college football over the last 5 years. So that's a key total. And it has skyrocketed to 48, 49. I might even consider still playing it at that price, because Air Force averaged 10 yards per play with a 55% success rate against a pretty good Northern Iowa front that's been in the FCS playoffs. We saw what South Dakota State did to Iowa last week. Like, those FCS teams can play a little D. Now they face a Colorado defense that was shredded by TCU. Air Force is going to move it. Air Force also allowed a ton of yards last week. So I think Colorado's going to move it a little bit too. Some quarterback questions for the Buffs, but 45, 47, 48, still a very low total in college football standards. I feel comfortable playing the over here. I would play Notre Dame against Marshall. Marshall hasn't played a Power 5 team in 4 years, and Marcus Freeman is 0-2 against 2 top 10 teams. They are going to let out some frustrations against the Thundering Herd, who are without their best player this week. The running back Ali is still taking a leave of absence. And I must be a sicko, Mark. I am going to bet on Iowa this week, laying 3.5. This line was 9. No, excuse me. This line was 13 2 weeks ago. And Iowa plays one game and they move it down 10 points. It's moved too much. Iowa's going to win this game. They're going to win it by a touchdown, and they're going to cover this number. Don't tell me how, because Spencer Petras looked like trash city. But Iowa, this is a buy. I mean, 10 points after one game is way too much to move a line, right?
All I got to say is it's a lot of safeties that Iowa has to get, okay? They need to get a lot.
They're going to win 4-0 on 2 safeties, and they'll cover the 3 in the hook for us.
So, yeah, I mean, listen, 3 safeties equals 1 touchdown. I guess that's the math that you need to go with here. So that might work out for you in that manner. Kick a couple of field goals. What do you know? You got 14.
Oh, man.
Chip away. Real quick, I told you the games that I'm on. Bama minus 20. Just a couple other notes here. Like I said, 21 is my point. I would also, and Jared, I'll ask you this: if you had Bama minus 13.5 in the first half, would you take it? Because that's another way to look at this game.
So the Bama first half numbers have been impressive. 22-7 now over the last 2 seasons, plus a game against the spread. After easily covering against Utah State. That was one of my big winners last week, one of my only winners last week other than South Dakota State. So we've now reached the territory of the lines have been salted down. I don't feel as good because what was that Bama first half line if it was at minus 12, which is where the look ahead was at South Point? It was probably 7 or 7.5. I don't know. That feels heavy to me. I think 10 is probably my cutoff point with Bama first half this week.
But you're at 12's a dead number, obviously, right? I mean,
it is. So I would say it was probably 7.5. I think anything over 10.5 is probably a little too heavy for me in Bama first half.
That's fair. Just another way to look at playing it. Look, here's the thing. Alabama's run defense is really good. Bijan Robinson only rushed for 87 yards last week. Not going to be a ton of room for him to run. And this is still an Alabama defense last year that was top 5 in the nation in sacks per game. This is a Texas defense last year that gave up 57 points to Kansas of all teams. I don't know that they're that much better this year. This is going to be a bloodbath in favor of Alabama. I feel really confident that they're going to be able to steamroll this thing. It's just a question of how much and if there's a late backdoor cover, which is why 20 is my buy limit. And I'll tell you on the total on this one, what it really boils down to is can Texas get to 20? If they do, this thing goes over the total because I think Alabama's in the 40s. But, it's just a question of whether you believe it. And if it does happen, you're going to be sweating this over for 4 quarters because it's not going to happen until very late in the game that they get that last touchdown that they need to push over. I told you about Kentucky. I'm going to take them. I'll fade Florida for a little bit longer. Let's see where it goes. Other SEC game that I am on. You mentioned South Carolina. They are taking on Arkansas. Arkansas was my week 1 best bet. We cashed on it. I'm going to fade him this week. There was a little bit too much dependency for me offensively on KJ Jefferson. And that's not a bad thing because KJ Jefferson is a good quarterback, but he was banged around a lot. He was hit. He was hobbling towards the end of the game. It's not a very good recipe for success for him to just have 18 completions and run the ball 18 times for Arkansas offensively. They really should have outpaced Cincinnati a lot more in that game had they just stuck to handing the ball off early and often the way they should have instead of trying to let KJ Jefferson be a one-man do-it-all show. Arkansas will be able to run the ball against the Gamecocks. As you mentioned, they give up 200 yards on the ground to a very run-savvy Georgia State team. But still, I'm going to back the Gamecocks here getting this many points. I don't know that Arkansas is good enough to separate by a touchdown or more against like opponents. Now, you could say South Carolina is not a like opponent, but Shane Beamer, one, as you mentioned, the special teams has been fantastic, but he knows how to be competitive. Yeah. He knows how to keep his team in games, and they're motivated to play behind him. And, oh, by the way, they got a new quarterback there in Spencer Rattler who's able to throw the ball. And Arkansas's pass defense last week was not good. They gave up 325 passing yards
No.
to Cincinnati.
Cincinnati's a lot better than I thought, by the way. Just to
Yeah,
throw
that's
that
fair
out
to
there.
say. Maybe I downgraded them a little bit much, but nonetheless, I do like South Carolina getting 8.5. Tennessee, Pittsburgh, going to be a fun game to watch. Don't really have a great feel on the side per se, but I will take Pittsburgh getting the 6.5 points at home. I love the over in this game, Jared. Tennessee overs this year are like Ole Miss overs last year. When they're sitting in the mid-60s, pounce all over them, because I guarantee you in 2 weeks, Tennessee's totals are going to be sitting in the 70s because that's how good this offense is. That's how quickly they can score. Hendon Hooker played the first half and the first drive of the second half. He was out of the game with over 200 passing yards, okay, and just the offense was humming. That's the way they're going to go this year offensively. So I have a lot of faith in Tennessee's offense. I don't have faith in Pittsburgh's defense. They gave up 31 to JT Daniels in West Virginia. Should have lost that game outright, by the way, for the record. That money line thing is still a little salty for me on West Virginia. That said, this is not a Pittsburgh defense that's as good as the one last year, unless they can get to the quarterback. They did have 3 sacks last week, but this is a Tennessee offensive line that's better than the one that West Virginia played with. So I think that there'll be tons of time for Hendon Hooker to throw, plenty of space for him to run. They have 2 very dynamic running backs, Tennessee does, in Jalen Wright and Jabari Small. The offense will be all over the field. Tennessee's defense, however, they stink too. That's the problem. This is a defense last year, Jared, that gave up 38 to Florida, 52 to Bama, 42 to Kentucky, 48 in their bowl game, and 21 to freaking Vanderbilt, whose offense is terrible. Yeah. So they're going to be better defensively, but they're not going to be that good yet. Volunteers are 9-2 to the over in their last 11 games dating back to last season. There should be plenty of room for Keaton Slovis to throw. We threw for over 300 yards last week. Love the over in this spot. Finally, real quick, my best bet of the week. USC laying 9 at Stanford. This is a hefty number, but the look-ahead line was only 8.5. So we're right on pace of where we need to be with this thing. And what sells me on this game more than anything, it wasn't that USC scored 66 points against Rice last week. It was the efficiency with that offense operated with. They were so crisp. They were so on point. And you could say it's against a bad defense, but guess what? The Cardinal defense was awful last year. And it's not any better this year. They're returning a bunch of starters, but this is a USC team that offensively, really, you had to be reminded how good Lincoln Riley is of a play caller and a schemer, and that stood out to me in week 1. I paused a little bit on USC in the opener, said I want no part of them. I want to see what I got. I saw what I got. It's enough for me to trust him. Plus, defensively, USC brought in a ton of transfers. 10 of them to be, in fact, on the defensive side of the ball. Does that mean the defense is going to be great? No, it's going to take a couple of weeks for them to gel. But guess what? They're going to leave the Cardinal playing catch-up for a better part of this game. And I don't know, even though they returned 10 starters on offense, the Cardinals did this year, I don't know that they have enough to keep up with USC. This number is that big for a reason. It stayed where it is. USC is the more talented team, despite the fact that they're on the road. And Lincoln Riley knows how much pressure he's under to score and score big early. I like USC a ton this week to cover that big number. All right.
I don't think it's going to move that much because it was a -4 look ahead. So I don't think it's going to move towards USC really any more than it already has. If anything, I would say it comes back down towards Stanford by a half a point or a point. We'll see if we get some buyback there. You made a comment about the special teams. Special teams have been a disaster for a lot of these programs the first couple of weeks. And listen, that is a very hard thing to handicap every week. It is very volatile, but there will likely be many more moments over the next 10 weeks of college football where we make a spot-on handicap, offense and defense, and we get screwed by some fluke special teams play. Just prepare yourself for that and do not let it affect your next handicap. Because it is inevitable. We're going to have missed field goals of 30 yards or less. We're going to have blocked punts, fumbled snaps, muffs, et cetera, et cetera. They are going to, they're 18 to 22-year-old kids, and the special teams units tend to be thin. Prepare yourself for havoc on special teams and do not let it affect your next bet. Just stay the course.
Next bet will be on Thursday Night Football in the NFL. Bills laying 2 points at the Rams in the season opener. Total of 51.5 here, Jared. I know you'll be able to handicap this in full tomorrow. I'm going to back the Bills. Now, I've heard people say that maybe we're overvaluing the Bills here as the defending Super Bowl champs are getting points at home. We know the straight up record in these games of the home team winning the season opener. I think it's like 13-5 now, or 14-4 since they've been doing this for nearly the last 20 years of straight up the home team winning, because you get so much, energy and excitement. They raise a banner and this, that, and the other. But I think there's some questions around the Rams. How healthy really is Matt Stafford heading into this game? How much is that elbow going to be an issue? I'm not sure we're 100% sure. But what I do know is the Bills have a more talented roster and the better quarterback. And with a short number like -2, it's enough for me to back him in this spot.
I'll mention one thing. First of all, to backtrack for a second, I was going through the chat. Joseph Gomez saying he wants to buy Florida to 7.5. Friends, do not buy points in college football. Do not buy points in college football. I will say it one more time. Do not buy points in college football. I'm not trying to gatekeep or talk down, but buying points in college football is like buying a dozen donuts and getting 11 in the box. You are not getting what you are paying for. It's not worth the squeeze. College football lines, the closing numbers, they are too volatile to buy points, especially off of 7. Makes no sense. Do not do that, Joseph. I love you all, but just don't buy points in college football. Not worth it. All right, back to the Bills. I agree with you that the Bills are the better team here. I also can back up your trend. Over the last 21 seasons, the Super Bowl winner is 18-3 straight up in those opening games. Only 13-6-2 against the spread, but that doesn't matter here because they're an underdog. So if they cover the spread, they're likely going to win the game by, the odds of them losing by 1 are very slim. So if they cover 99 times out of 100, they are going to win this game. That being said, there are a lot of questions about Matthew Stafford's elbow. There are a lot of questions about no Von Miller. There are a lot of questions about going from Odell Beckham to Allen Robinson at that number 2 wide receiver spot. There are a lot of questions about the Rams heading into this season. I think there are fewer questions about the Bills, but the big question, Brian Daboll gone, Josh Allen, we'll see. We expect there to be no drop-off because Josh Allen is a supreme talent, favorite to win the MVP. Bills are heavy favorite to win the Super Bowl. I've never seen a number this short at this stage. But it's still questions about what that offense will look like. I think if I had to pick a side, I have no bets on this game currently, with the exception of a prop that Clev TA, our new NFL prop guru, has put on the site, which I mentioned yesterday. That's the only bet I have on this game so far. If I were to get to the window on it, I would probably lay the 2 with the Bills. And I'd probably bet the over. But it's square, it's expected, and NFL throws us curveballs, right? But at the end of the day, I think Buffalo's the better team. And I think they're the best team in the league. So until they prove to me that they're not, I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt week 1 opening night. I would bet Buffalo. You want to bet the money line, lay 30 cents, avoid the ridiculousness. I don't hate that either, but I would just lay the 2 with Buffalo like you and hope that Josh Allen doesn't skip a beat without Brian Daboll.
I'll ask you this question too. I mean, look, flip this around. If this game was in Buffalo, we're talking about a touchdown spread here. Or more.
Yeah. Probably 5 or 6. Yeah.
If you were giving the defending champs 6 points in week 1, you'd probably be taking the defending champs. I mean, I get it; it's on the road, but still.
No, I would. I would take I would take him in that spot.
Yes, but so that leads the question: have we overpriced the Bills at this point?
Maybe. I mean, you saw it. One of our mutual friends tweeted it out yesterday. Chris Andrews at South Point said he's never seen the line this short for a Super Bowl favorite at this stage. They're what, like less than 4-1 to win the Super Bowl? There's 31 other teams in the league, and they all have the same record. Like it's very unique to see a team that has not won a Super Bowl or even gotten to a Super Bowl with this current staff and roster being favored at this price. It's one thing if it's Tom Brady or Patrick Mahomes coming off of Super Bowl wins. I can understand why there would be an increased amount of love for those teams. But this is a Buffalo team that has broken. I used to do a show, you know him, Gabe Morency, for one of the other networks we used to work for. He is the biggest Buffalo Bills fan in the world. This poor guy's had his heart broken so many times. I've done shows with him during Buffalo Bills playoff games where he's drinking on the air. That's how miserable he is. So you're talking about a team that has put their fan base through that kind of misery for years, that is now such a short favorite to win the Super Bowl before a game is even played. Probably a little bit of overvaluation in the market for that team, but we'll find out tomorrow night if it's worth it or not.
No overvaluing our 3-star plays on the Pickswise.com website. Jared, take us through what we have here for this Wednesday evening.
Andrew Ortenberg is back, ladies and gentlemen. Oh my God, it's so great to see his name back on our site. So our NFL guru, who by the way was in like a I don't know if it was like a award nominated, but it's definitely like in one of the film festivals. He's an actor. That's his his actual job, and he handicaps football as his side gig right now. I'm just kidding. He's our full-time editor. He does a great job editing the site. But he does a great job acting too. He's got a picture. He's got a pick on the site for the Falcons Saints game. Thrilled to have him back in the mix for football season. Caleb Wolfinger's got Colorado Air Force. Love this pick. Cleb TA. I gave you a shout, and I would definitely be very interested in anything he puts on our site this year. He has a fantastic track record of betting NFL props. He has a prop for Thursday night. He also has a side for Monday night between the Broncos and the Seahawks. Might surprise you what side he is on there, but there's a lot on the site, not for tonight, but for the football weekend that I would be very interested in getting involved.
All right, that'll bring it to our plays of the day here. Godfather, would you lead us off here on our 1-year anniversary of Let's Bet It? 1 year of plays of the day.
I was going to say, not age before beauty. Beauty before age? Is that how we're doing it?
Yes, let's go with that, sure. You might be the Godfather, but I'm the elder statesman at this point. So
you are, and I don't know how I feel about the Godfather. It makes me think we're like running some mob scenes here. All right. Shout out to David Bierman, who is one of the editors for ESPN, and he has been on this bet for the last month. And I feel like I'm the guy walking up to the craps table at the end of an amazing roll, and I'm about to crap out here. But we're gonna hop on this trend today. The Marlins team total under has been a bet that has cashed at a ridiculous rate. How about this? 24-3-2 over the last 29 games. I mean, there ain't much else to say but that. The handicap makes sense from a narrative perspective. The Marlins offense has been awful this year. They have nothing to play for. They are facing a lot of really good teams in the National League East on a daily basis. The Mets pitching staff, the Braves pitching staff, even the Nationals have a couple of good guys that they throw out there on a regular basis. Today they're facing the Phillies, who also have a pretty decent pitching staff. And they're facing lefty Bailey Falter, who only has 11 career plate appearances against this Marlins lineup, so not a big sample size to go off. And he's also been very good of late, at least 6 innings and 3 runs or less in 4 straight starts. Philly's 4-0 in those starts. And Miami has the lowest average, WOBA, and WRC plus against lefties since July 1st. 3.5 is where this number is over at FanDuel. Under, laying 32 cents. If we ruin the trend and mush it, I apologize, David, but we are giving it out today as our best bet. Under 3.5, the Marlins team total against the Phillies later tonight.
My play of the day, how could I not go to a NRFI? Cleveland and Kansas City. Zach Greinke on the mound for the Royals. It is now September. He's made 10 home starts this year. You know how many times he's been touched up in the first inning, Jared? 0. Perfect at home this year to the NRFI. In fact, his home road splits are incredibly insane. He's got a sub-2 ERA at home. He's got a 1.1 whip. He's only allowed 1 home run. That should negate Cleveland being 11th in Major League Baseball overall and on the road this year in first inning run scored percentage. Now, what does the flip side of this look like? Cody Morris makes his second ever start for the Cleveland Guardians. Made his first one last week against the Mariners, got banged around, only lasted 2 innings, gave up 4 runs. Hoping his nerve calmed down a little bit, but he's facing a Royals lineup that is bottom third in the league in first inning run scored percentage this year. That's enough for me at minus 110 to back this NRFI, staying on the Zach Greinke train at home in the NRFI situation here. So give me a Royals Guardians NRFI here tonight in KC. All right, that'll do it for us here on today's edition of Let's Bet It. Happy anniversary to you, Jared. Happy anniversary to everybody on the Let's Bet It staff, from everybody who has put this show together over the last year. It's been a blast doing it. And certainly we want to thank you guys, the viewers, the watchers, the people who tweet us and put the comments in the YouTube channel and everything.
Yes,
you guys are part of
diehards.
the show on a daily basis, and we appreciate all the love and support that you give us each and every day. So for Jared Smith, I'm Mark Zinni. You guys have a wonderful Wednesday. Best of luck on all your bets. Have a great day. Go get it. Go bet it.